Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're just going to look at EC2 placement groups. So there's two different types of placement groups. We've got our clustered placement groups and then we've got our spread placement groups, and they are completely opposite to each other. So let's go ahead and start with clustered placement groups, and this is basically a group of instances within a single availability zone, and placement groups are recommended for applications that need really low network latency or high network throughput or both, and this kind of makes sense. You want them to basically be as close to each other physically as possible because that's going to reduce your network latency and it's also going to increase your network throughput. And just remember with clustered placement groups that only certain instances can be launched into clustered placement groups. So again, this is used for things like very high, high-powered compute. Maybe you have a need for a very large network throughput, or you need extremely low latency. You're going to be wanting to use a clustered placement group. A spread placement group is a group of instances that are placed on distinct underlying hardware, so they're away from each other. And spread placement groups are recommended for applications that have a small number of critical instances that should be kept separate from each other. So this isn't for any kind of high performance compute. If anything, it's for instances that shouldn't be close to each other because it might constitute a business risk. So that is really it. You just need to understand the different types of placement groups, our clustered placement groups and our spread placement groups going into your exam. So clustered placement groups is used for very low latency or high network throughput or both. Spread placement groups is where you want your instances separated away from each other so that you reduce the overall risk to your business. And just remember that clustered placement groups cannot span multiple availability zones, whereas a spread placement group can. Also remember that the name you specify for a placement group must be unique within your AWS account, and then only certain types of instances can be launched into a placement group. So these will be things like compute optimized, GPU or memory optimized, or storage optimized. And just remember that AWS recommends homogeneous instances within placement groups. So you shouldn't have all kinds of different instance types in your placement groups. You can, but AWS do not recommend that. And then also just remember that you can't merge placement groups. You can't take one placement group and another placement group and then go ahead and merge them. And you can't move an existing instance into a placement group. You can create an AMI from your existing instances and then launch the new instance from the AMI into the placement group, but you can't go ahead and move an existing instance into the placement group. So you just need to create an AMI. So that is it for this lecture, everyone. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.